Good morning. It's really been a while making videos like these, so keeping them as succinct as possible has proven to be a challenge. I wanted to briefly talk on something called revolutionary fatigue. It's a term that I came across in and around 2016 from someone who is quite a well-known, very prominent activist who I was giving driving lessons at the time, and it really has stuck with me to this day. And I think what he was getting at, as the phrase or term would suggest, is basically the concept that slavery, colonialism, and apartheid, and segregation in other places, all these things have been or happened as a continuum. So we always quote dates around history, but history doesn't work in that neatly compartmentalized fashion. So a lot of things are actually a continuum. As you've seen now, I think even those who are born post 94, so-called born freeze, you know and experience now that you are aware, that you are conscious, that you are an adult, and understand that you and your family have inherited certain contradictions, structural contradictions, racial contradictions, financial disparities, and whatever. There are certain things that you inherited through no doing of your own, and then over time, as you gradually grow and take more responsibility for your life and take more responsibility for your family and the society that you live in, you can then fight back and resist against these things. Some are sucked into that world much earlier and younger than a lot of us are because conditions compel them to do so, and they in fact need to grow up much faster than what someone ordinarily would. So because so much oppression and violence and rape and pillaging has happened as a continuum, has happened unabated, unfettered almost, where there's been, not to say that we just rolled over. Our people fought. We've got a glorious struggle history that spans back hundreds of years. We've resisted politically. We've picketed. We've protested. We've shot back. We've stabbed back. We've killed back, which is good. You need to. That's your godly divine duty to fight back against oppressive people and oppressive systems. And the language often understood is violence. Violence is something that is often understood by these systems, and that is why they're so vested in pacifying and foregrounding the messages of non-violent resistance, because they know that it's easier to keep things in check in that way. But how they established the very system was through brute force, was through brute violence that didn't care about how old you were, if you're a man or woman or whatever. It came down like a ton of bricks. Yes, there are nuances in how men and women experience these things. People of different sexual orientations. That's the full tapestry of life. That it's never as clear cut as we deem it or as we perceive it to be, but it has all these what we call nuances or little things that embellish the bigger picture and make it more full and inclusive and realistic of the picture, because we like things in to be dichotomous or to be in a certain dichotomy, to have a right or wrong, or black or white, or we've reached that stage in our collective consciousness, it seems. But revolutionary fatigue is perhaps what I believe is at play in the South Africa that we live in. as a child that was born in the mid-90s, I would only have become somewhat conscious of the world around me circa 4, 5, age 4, 5. You know, you go into something that's less dizzy than the previous years. But I've got fond memories of a lot of hope that abounded at the time. A lot of excitement, a lot of expectation for the future. And those things just never really, some of them just never materialized. I think a lot of hopes were dashed. Individual hopes, collective hopes, were dashed. And I think that feeds into fatigue. When you try and try and try and something doesn't work, it is human to become despondent. It is human to look for sources of motivation in those dark moments. It is human for people to also give up, or to what we call sell out, and basically relinquish everything around the struggle and say that this isn't for me. I want a life of comfort. I want something better. I refuse to keep sacrificing myself, my resources, my body, my time, my spirit in this way. I also want to be like the selfish people of this world. I also know about very fancy brands that people can't pronounce, and very fancy locations that people don't know about. And I also want to drive the very fancy cars that people won't even know how to open and close doors in. So from my side, yes, it's understandable that many people, they sacrificed a lot for our country to be, and it's ordinary people that liberated this country. ANC gets all this glory and shine. It wasn't just the ANC that contributed. And by the way, there's a whole discussion we can have on what actually constitutes a liberation and a revolutionary movement, and what constitutes a civil rights body, which might be what the ANC should be defined as, more than a traditional liberation movement. And in fact, a lot of blame should be shifted to the likes of PAC, APLA, AZAPO, AZANDLA for the center not holding, and for these organizations, Black Conscious Movement, these people with a rich, glorious struggle past. I say these people, I've got family members as well that contributed within, as I've heard, ANC, Mkhonto weSizwe, but also PAC and APLA structures. I don't know so much about AZAPO in terms of my family's past contributions. But I don't know if the collective effort through the way the economy has come to be structured and left untouched, largely untouched by the deals, the backroom deals and the boardroom deals of the 90s and the CODESAs, the NGOs, the NPOs that have been set up to address social ills, the churches that have stood up, the mosques, the religious organizations, the businesses, the charities, the orphanages, the homes, the people, the schools, the I don't know, like civil society at large and civic bodies that have been formed, that have come in, that have tried to make a difference and to lift the bottom up. It seems like it's in a very tired space, where individuals have even had to break out and try and, do things on social media just to, again, raise political consciousness, raise matters, raise issues. It seems we overrun with issues. It seems, it seems like the center's not holding. It seems like the country's not really, like it's reached that stage where the whole aim of the liberation movement was to get South Africa, or some liberation movements or civil rights movements, was to get South Africa as ungovernable as possible, to bring the apartheid system to its knees in that regard. Now it seems like the very same people that were part of that sort of guerrilla warfare are the ones that are using that and then suppressing the people and the voices, using the state as like a counter revolutionary force, a counter intelligence force, instead of the state playing or to the mandate actually that people were crying for, were dying for, were bleeding for, were raped for, were jailed for, were exiled for. I can understand the frustration of our people not wanting to listen, of trying in communities, of doing the right thing, of speaking the right language, of you genuinely not even asking people to come with you to Ukraine or go with you to Russia or go help fight people, like fight in Sudan. That's not what you're asking for. You're not asking for that. There's just some basics that we can get right without government. And so many speakers online, so many personalities have come out and said that. But even that, people aren't getting right. Don't have the willingness, don't have the spirit, don't want to give their energy, don't want to give their time. But I think revolutionary fatigue is a term that we must perhaps flesh out more in our politics, because I think it's I heard the term 7 years ago, but it keeps coming back. The phrase keeps coming back when I look at just how pathetic South Africa has become and our state of affairs are. Just how many people with resources, with knowledge, with contacts, with connections, with skills can uplift so many people, but refuse to do so. Unfortunately, it's going to be the middle class that bears the brunt for things going south faster and further than what they have already. The elite have families. Some of us also have families in other countries, but the elites have propped themselves up nicely with passports, with foreign bank accounts, with having invested in different countries, with having bought homes, maybe having set up businesses, offshore accounts, and all that stuff that would make their life a lot easier relocating. The people that are going to face the brunt of it, it's again going to be the middle class. That is the most obedient. It is the most it's paying taxes, it's exposed to taxes, but it gets screwed over the most by the elite and the poor. So I don't know. We're gonna have to have some serious looks at ourselves as South Africans. We're going to have to look deep within. I'm not convinced by a lot of people who style themselves and call themselves revolutionaries, who are in so-called radical leftist movements or organizations. I'm not convinced. Large chunk aren't really honest. Not going to do half of what they say. Just using a different tool to agitate for class ascendance. It's transitional class talk. after they get their degree, after they get nice cushiony jobs, or after they get into these after they open their own business or whatever, it's like, yeah, that talk dies down. So I don't really believe some people are genuine when they say they want the change, and they know the kind of flashback they're gonna get. they're gonna come up against people that have been training, that have been organized, that have been ready and waiting for that moment. And I'm not convinced they're even ready to go up against such. So I don't want to mislead you into things, spaces and places that you might one day regret. But revolutionary fatigue, maybe we can call it the phrase of the day or phrase of the week. And I want you to reflect on it and maybe comment here, share this video with someone who might enrich this conversation, and maybe we can expand it, and I'll leave it at that. But it's just a general sense that there's a continuum of violence that we faced through slavery, colonialism, apartheid, into the modern nuanced, it's more nuanced, but we still see the oppression, we still see the separation, segregation, division, the struggle, and in other cases, the massive amounts of privilege. These are still topics that need to continually be fleshed out with statistics, with real life stories, with realities of just how hard people have to fight to overcome certain things, build themselves up, and also just being comments that people throw out on social media, not knowing you from a bar of soap. Racists do that as well. Black people do that. Assuming things about people and their backgrounds, but not knowing that the challenges and struggles people have had to overcome. I don't know if civil society is tired at this point, and I'm worried. I'm worried about if we're tired, it could cause rebellion that is very reactionary and short-sighted. It's not going to really lead to effectual change. And we must always keep our eyes and ears out for what intelligence agencies and groups are saying from different countries about South Africa, because these could be stuff they foreshadow as to what they want to do in terms of destabilizing our country. Maybe just, motivation for those who are fighting online, fighting on the streets, fighting in different spaces. Keep the fires going. We need to have our country functioning. We need to have a working country. We need a country that makes sense, with such beautiful people, beautiful potential needs to be unlocked. We need to challenge things at the highest of levels, down to the street level, the home level. But I think, let me not ramble on too much. I've actually made a few videos. I think this will be the final cut on the concept of revolutionary fatigue. What does it mean to you? What does it represent to you? Because I know some people are just tired of trying. It's always the same voices, same faces. And the question comes down to, why do these things always seem to fail?